Welcome to the Mindless Pursuits Unreal Engine Marketplace review for Lockpicking components by Flakky. The date of this review is March 14th, 2016. At this time, the supported Unreal Engine build is 4.10, and the build we used for this review is 4.10.4. Technical specifications, you can see here, number of blueprints, 5 lock components, 3 rendering blueprints, and 5 demo doors. Different features, the internal platform is basically all of them. Tested platforms, PC, and then commented code functions and variables for part of the documentation. Testing rig, as always, is my development box. You can see the specs here. So let's look at the preview map. This was supplied in the package by Flakky, and it does a pretty good job of showing what you need to see. So here's the preview level. And as always, before we actually launch it, I want to look at how the content is done. And the first thing, as always, is that I can't see a reason offhand why starter content is included in this. So the starter content should be removed. I'm going to have to do a ding right there for organization. And lockpick components, everything seems to be good there. So not an issue. And in fact, when you go to use it in your own projects, you actually have to add this, or not add this, you have to create this as a new project, which is the second thing I will ding it for, because there's really no reason why this has to be created as a new project. It should be able to just be added to an existing project. But if you create it as a new project, like it needs to, you can always migrate just this lock component folder over to your existing project, and it'll work just fine. Inside the lock component folder, you've got the 5 component blueprints. You've got the other assets that are going on here, and so on down the line. So everything is nicely organized. It's easy to look through and understand what's going on. Let's click play so you can see what happens here. Again, you can watch a lot of the same thing in the videos on his site, so there's nothing new there. I will say that there's a bit of functionality I wish he had added, because it's all very straightforward, all works well, but I wish he had added what happens when the lockpicking fails. So for instance, in the Elder Scrolls series and other ones, if you're trying to pick the lock and it doesn't work too many times, your pick will actually break. There's nothing directly in the package for that. Now, I'm going to say, when you look at the blueprints, it's easy enough to extend it to do that, but it would have been nice to have in the package. But you go up to a thing, you interact on it, and here's the second thing, and I'm not doing this as a knock on the product, it's just something I noticed, which is that the way the setup, if that's all the way in, you can't turn it, you pull it out to a certain point, and then you can start to do stuff, and unless there's something I missed, you go all the way out and you're in, regardless of what the lock setting is. Then again, I may have missed something there, so I don't want to knock it for that. It still works very well, and there are tweaks you can make in the blueprint that would probably help that. And then the other type of lock, and I'm actually going to jump down a door here. The other type of lock is a pin lock, and there are different variations on that, and different ways you can implement it. And again, there's not actually a lot in most of this until you get to the realistic one that you're doing to, that you're doing to offset, or not offset, that you're doing to respond to multiple attempts that don't work. So you're probably going to have to just keep a counter for yourself and react to it again. I'm not going to knock that as a thing here, because how you want to react to it is your own. I want to be very careful, because I don't want to actually show all of their blueprints. That would be bad. But I do want to go into, for instance, the rotation lock component. And I'm going to gray out the main part here. What I want you to see are all the different things you can change for this component. So the position, the lock position, tolerance, randomizing the correct position, rotation speed, all sorts of stuff. There are lots and lots and lots and lots of things that you can customize here. which is awesome. And it's very, very easy to use. I mean, really, really easy to use. Let's close that one, and let's go to, let's see, one of the pin ones. And again, I'm going to gray out this, but you've got timers for the pin stays, returning how many are in the correct position, all sorts of stuff, how many pins there are. A lot of good stuff in here. It's very easy to customize and use. When you go to actually implement it on something, it is as easy as actually adding the component to your object. So, if you click on the door here and you go to look at the blueprint for it, like all componentry, it's just a component that has been added here. And it all works very well. I mean, I am very impressed with how easy it is. I am impressed with how nicely commented everything is. Variables, functions, all that are named very well. It's very self-documenting, which is what you want to see in a blueprint. So I'm actually really happy with it. Again, the nice to have would have been if there was some sort of default behavior for failure. But as I said, that's not difficult to implement, so I'm not gonna knock for that. And everything else is great. So really, organization is about the only thing in terms of what we've seen so far that I would ding them on. And again, that's just because there's no reason for the starter content, and there's absolutely no reason why this needs to be create a new project instead of just add to a project. So let's take a second and look at the documentation. Now, the page on the Unreal Engine website is the only site available to it, the only documentation. So in line with what I usually say, I think they need to go a little step further. I have nothing against having a page on the Unreal site be your primary thing if this is all you do is create stuff for the Unreal Engine. But when it comes to supporting the people who are doing stuff, I'm not a fan at all of sending people to threads. But again, the description's basic, but all the documentation is really in the code. If you go down, you can actually see a link to where someone took the blueprint and used it for a different purpose. So it's still a lock, but they actually put it in 3D World Space for VR, which is pretty cool. So they could still use the same underlying blueprint, they just had to change the visuals a bit. If we go to that support thread that I was talking about, he's actually got, a video there, and he talks about the structure of it and how things work. And, lots of questions. He's been very open and conversant about it, so, I applaud that. And again, there's the person showing their use. So here are my ratings. For the blueprint asset ease of use, 10 out of 10. It doesn't get much simpler than dropping a component onto your door and setting the configuration options in the detail view. It's so easy to use, it's amazing. Or just well done. The blueprint ease of extendability, and yes, I know extendability is not a word, is 10 out of 10 because the blueprints themselves are so well commented, so clean. All the functions and all that are well named. It's easy to figure out what's going on. Extending it is a piece of cake. So I give that a 10 out of 10. Documentation, again, my only ding there is the fact that they're sending you to a thread for your support. I've said the reasons why I don't like that, so I'll just leave it at that. 8 out of 10. The package organization is the only place where they got a severe ding, and it's the same way I do it for anyone that happens to have these two particular things. The first is there was no reason for starter content to be in this package. And in fact, let's be blunt, there's almost no reason for the starter content to be in any package. And second, the create new project as opposed to add to project. There was no reason whatsoever why this had to be something set up to create the project to get it up and running. You should be able to do an add to project and have it work. Now, again, it's not hard to migrate the one folder and subfolders you need out of there to your project. but you shouldn't have to do that to begin with. So 2 out of 10 for package organization. Then for the demonstration maps, very straightforward. You've got examples of everything. The documentation up on the wall tells you some of the options and ways that things work. So it does exactly what it needs to. It does a great job of demonstrating the locks. And so I give that a 10 out of 10. And the final rating then is 8 out of 10, which is very good. Solve the package organization problem, and this would move into the excellent range easily. But regardless of that, I would definitely recommend this. If you are looking for lock picking type functionality in your game, you really can't go wrong with this. The one thing, as I said, that would be nice to have would be if there was already something in place for, reacting if it fails, showing a broken pick or something. But, that's not hard to add on because it's so easy to extend this. So I'm definitely not knocking you for that. So very good, and I would definitely recommend it. So if you like this review, please click the like button. It'll really help me out. And, I want to know if I should be continuing to do reviews of things or not. Always offer me your feedback on reviews. But if you like this review, click the like button. If you aren't currently a subscriber, please consider subscribing. I do not only reviews, if this is the only thing you've seen, but I also do game development tutorials and, some gameplay videos. But mostly I do game development tutorials. And, it'd be nice to have you aboard. If you want more information on mindless pursuits, you can go to any of these links. And as always, I want to thank you for all of your interest and support. Take care.